Hello, I'm Shieldwall100 and welcome back to my wargaming channel. Today I have a review for a game recommended to me on my Facebook feed of all things, thus proving that algorithmic advertising works and we are in fact doomed. Mythic Commander is described as a fast-paced two-player wargame published by Modiphius Entertainment. The title suggests a fantasy setting and I'd say this is correct. Speaking of the title, I'm not sure a more generic one could have been found. It's as if there's a royalty-free fantasy title name generator out there and the creator figured they'd just go with the first result. So it's a fantasy battle game with a generic name in a hotly contested market. Even if you somehow ignore all of the bones of previous systems littered outside of Games Workshop's cave, you might be forgiven for not expecting much of an impact here. You'd be looking for simple, accessible rules along with a couple of hooks that really set Mythic Commander apart from the rest of the pack. In this video, I'm going to attempt to portray how Modiphius has tried and at least in part succeeded to carry this out. First of all, it's a very accessible set of rules. No accompanying miniature sets, no specific ground or figure scale, you can play with your existing models on a grid. The units are based as elements, and due to each such unit taking up one space on a grid, you can even mix the basing sizes, so whether your models are individually based or in groups, they're not only usable, but can fight with or against each other without any delays. The physical copy of the game ships with a double-sided gridded map and a sheet of counters, stylized to give you fantasy-looking armies to build and fight against each other. This flat-pack, travel-friendly style is a big part of what drew me to Mythic Commander in the first place. Existing viewers of my channel will know I've got a bit of a soft spot for easily transportable games like Onus, and this is perhaps the easiest to carry around of the bunch. The maps provided give a good variety of terrain types, allowing you to gradually increase the complexity of your games as you decide to use the rules for the terrain or not. Also included with the rulebook are the various counters and cards needed to play, from damage counters to command and spell cards. The only thing you need to play that isn't present in the asking price are the dice, for which I recommend a minimum of 10 standard die D6, easily procurable and carryable. The rules themselves continue this ease of use. During a given turn, starting with the player holding the initiative, each army takes it in turns activating a unit. Activating a unit could be to move it, rally it from fleeing, or to use it to initiate a round of combat. Once each side has activated all of their units, their turn ends with a brief aftermath phase where units who've had a tough time of it test to see if their nerve holds. The number of grid spaces moved, the number of dice rolled to deal or resist damage, and the roll required to maintain morale is all easily found on a given unit's stat sheet. Very simple, pretty vanilla. Your heroes and characters have their own stat lines and are fighters in their own right. Joining them to a unit will boost your influence in that area of the battlefield by a considerable amount. So far it's workable and fun, but nothing to set the world afire. There's a bit more to come though, and before I start, I'm not saying there's anything necessarily unique here. I'm well aware there's nothing new under the sun. However, some of the following little touches really piqued my interest as I read the rules, and are borne out when playing. The Fortune of War card is a good little mechanic. The player without initiative gets given this card each turn and can play it to re-roll a set of dice at any point in the turn. If they play it, however, the card is given to the other player, who can then use it at their discretion at a future point of the turn. Therefore you have it as a potentially powerful tool just sitting with you to use. However, you need to judge when to use it to best effect, and in doing so you hand this over to your opponent who might get a better opportunity to use it than you. It's simple but spicy and I like it. The command cards are another modifier to the usual gameplay that deserves mention. You'll be maintaining a hand of these cards, the size of which is determined by the calibre of leader in your army, and using them in various ways to enhance the performance of your units. Some of them are played as it is your turn to activate your unit and grant that unit a buff, such as light troops being able to move as well as shoot instead of just one or the other. Others can be held to use to interrupt the normal gameplay sequence, specifically played at certain times to add to your die rolls. Now, I know this kind of thing is not new, some might say commonplace in one form or another, but I like it in Mythic Commander because you really seem incentivized to use the cards, and so I think they'll have a far greater influence on the game than you'd first think. Other games kind of give you the mindset to hoard your cards for later, but here you redraw up to the full hand each time and they can really swing a situation in your favour, so don't be shy. In a game where the basic rules render up so many known qualities in terms of the unit stats, the cards add that element just beyond dice probabilities to keep you off balance. The other big part of this game that sets it apart, and is clearly a large part of the design process, is the way armies are built. This game is not trying to sell you a big fantasy setting in which to pitch your struggles. It's not a creative writing exercise. There's no lore here. This unapologetically gives you a vehicle to use fantasy models from practically any setting against each other. There are army lists, however, and they are archetypes by ethos rather than belonging to a race or nation from the rules, and it's your choice which suits the style of models you'll be using. For example, the brutal army list gives stats for an army that is naturally at the brawnier, more aggressive end of the food chain, eliciting images of your stereotype orcs. Meanwhile, the resilient army list has naturally tougher units which are less likely to be overrun while retreating, conjuring up the stoic dwarves of Warhammer fame. But if you want to take a less high fantasy setting and go more Game of Thrones, the brutal army list just represents a faction with a more warlike attitude than their neighbours. There are 7 of these archetypes to use, but they can be further differentiated from each other by applying to them one of 6 different civilizations. A civilization in this sense adds further options and can modify the proportions of the numbers of different unit types available. Being barbaric, for instance, elevates your commander to one of the most powerful individual fighters of his kind, and opens up the option for you to make some of your troops berserkers, willing to fight to the death once in melee. The same archetype, however, could alternatively belong to an ancient civilization instead of barbaric, granting greater access to magical equipment for characters and time-tested discipline amongst its infantry. The civilization upgrades are almost always accompanied by an additional points cost for the affected unit, and it's usually up to your discretion as to whether they fit your army or not. Now, I'm aware that generic fantasy armies with design-it-yourself army lists goes back to Hordes of the Things, but I think that this is a really fun way to build your armies from scratch, or to imagine how an army from your favourite fantasy setting might be represented on the tabletop. This sort of game design cannot be without flaws. For many, I suspect it might come across as too generic. There is something to be introduced into a new fictional setting, finding out the rich lore and characters therein. Being expected to make it up yourself or to fit the rules up to a setting you already like just isn't part of the wargaming experience that everyone wants. Another potential issue is one that, whilst it's kind of a broad strokes approach, there's a definite dedication to the tropes of traditional fantasy that some players with other preconceived notions might find jarring. Charges are very powerful indeed because your unit damages the enemy before they fight back, and cavalry charge very hard indeed. If you're looking for a more historical perspective on cavalry versus ranks of trained infantry, you'll need to dial that back and learn to love the ride of the Rohirrim. Similarly, characters are unsubtly powerful and easily game altering all on their own. There's also no intrinsic benefit to supporting your units with friends nearby, as there are in so many historical rule sets. Sure, there are some available for purchase under certain army list conditions, but again I think that Rules Chrome has been sacrificed for just keeping the flow going. A benefit in my book, but not for all. Finally, I found that procuring a set comes with a certain degree of difficulty postage-wise. It certainly comes up in many discussions and adverts for the game, so perhaps weigh your purchase and what you'll get out of it, and hopefully by the time this review is up there'll be many places to find the rules to purchase. Overall, I think that Mythic Commander is definitely worth a look to the person out to obtain a fun game to transport easily. Maybe a game to take on holiday with a group of friends with some evening time available for a game. It may also be of interest to the person with a varied collection of fantasy armies looking for a cost-effective way to expand the use of their existing models. I myself looked at this for the former reason, but upon inspection of the rules I was moved to start building armies based off of ideas I got from this rule set from spare kits I had for Frostgrave. That fact alone should tell you that there's got to be something at least a little bit special here. But the best way to tell is to show, so to speak, so I think it's worth showing you a little demonstration as follows. And welcome to my games room, where I'm going to be showing off a quick playtest demonstration of the Mythic Commander rules. We've got 2 forces lined up here, which I created and based for this game, really. Right, so where do we start? Yes, we've got at the beginning of the War of the Thrice-Filled Prophecy, the local militia to the last remaining human city have noticed that down this road from the embattled citadel, the hordes of blood-sworn cultists have ceased to just be the only things marauding down this road, and they're joined by ranks of heavily armoured demon scourge Hellguard, and it's the marked uptick in enemy activity has caused them to rouse their militia to face down the horrors coming from that citadel, and yes, it's that's what we're going with. So we've got a stalwart archetype army on the left here, the humans. What we've got here is 2 units of archers. Let's see, I can pick them up because they're on a grid. So yeah, this is how they've turned out for me. Pretty good, I think. So far so good. They're not finished. 2 units of archer infantry here, 2 units of warriors, which are infantry here. Okay, as you can see, I've marked their unit strength, i.e. their hits and the number of attacks they generally get, as dice in the little markers behind. So 10 apiece there for infantry. They are joined by 2 units of cavalry. We have some lancers, which count as heavy cavalry here as the knightly orders, who are joined by the army commander. Stalwart or army commander, that is. Yep, so 5 hits for cavalry, 10 for infantry, nice and simple. 4 for the army commander on this team, you can see that there, and another unit of what's termed knights in the rules. They're not actually like heavily armoured or anything, it's just knights are like close combat cavalry. Another 5 hits there though on that unit, but you know, they still move fast and hit fairly hard, so there you go. Facing off against them are the hordes of the Bloodsworn cult and their Hellguard allies. So what we got here is some cultists with crossbows, which infantry again, all infantry on this side, but standard infantry here, 10 hits, 2 units of warriors on the far side. Now this is a brutal army archetype, which means that their stats are different, even though they're the same unit types, warriors or archers or whatever, got different unit stats because of the different archetypes, and these guys are a bit tougher than their counterparts across the board. And yeah, and this unit, as you can see, joined by the demon general here. He's got 5 hits on him, so a brutal army commander has 5 hits and the stalwart army commander has 4, just to give you an idea. And yes, these 2 units here are actually also infantry, of course, but they are heavy infantry. They're called guardians, so they got some pretty meaty stats altogether. Okay, so yeah, I'm using my gridded table from my Strength and Honor gaming. Very handy to use. The scenery, because there's so few units on the board, it's mostly just there for decoration, but this is how it would generally look. The road is really just for generation, doesn't have any actual use whatsoever. The command cards have been drawn, 3 apiece, and because of each side's got a singular commander on it, and we're ready to go into the first turn. Okay, the planning phase of the first turn, and I shall be back momentarily. I've just done the planning phase for the first round. Right, both sides can look at their command card hands and determine if they want to discard any cards. The Stalwart army has actually got rid of Monstrous Roar because it's a monster unit related one, and they don't have any monster units, unfortunately for them. But yeah, discarding it actually, well, for each one you discard, you get +1 on your die roller, so you get the initiative. So off we go. The blues are the Stalwart army, and the blacks are the Brutals. So +1 to the blue dice. Let's see who goes first. Well, there you go, double 5, up to a 6 for the Blues though, so the Stalwart army will be taking the lead in this first turn's activations, and that's what we're going to get onto now. Okay, for the first activation of the game, we're going to go with the Stalwart humans are going to go with this archer unit over here, and you can see I've put an activation marker on them, and so they're going to shoot. And archers have a range of 6 squares in this game, so as you can see, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces to shoot at the cultists over here, so they're well in range. You can actually shoot things out of sight in this, no need to do so here. These cultists have missile weapons, so as you can see, I'm just going to zoom in a second, there you go, crossbows, counts as archers, whatever, which means they'll be shooting back in this game, okay, in this activation, sorry. When you shoot at something with missile weapons, it shoots back, you initiate a round of shooting. So the humans have 10 dice, because that's their strength, and they roll and they force to hit. And as you can see there, they get 4 hits out of that. Okay, so those will be now converted into armor saves for the Bloodsworn. I did forget what the roll was needed to save at this point, so that's why I went around this side of the table. Nice one past Lee, well done you. But I did recall it's actually they save on a 5 or 6. Even on the brutal side, they only get 5 up saves for archers, because archers are soft generally, so there you go. And they take 2 hit points of damage through, because they failed 2 of those saves. Did look at the Fortune of War card, which they could have, but not really worth using it, because they passed 2 of the 4 saves on 5s anyway, so they took the 2 points of hit damage. So now time for the Bloodsworn to shoot back. They'll have 10 dice, because shooting is considered to be simultaneous, and so yeah, they shoot back at the same target. Of course, they need force to hit as well, so here we go, and they get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits. So again, probably not worth using the Fortune of War card for that, because it's average, you run the risk of getting a worse result, and the Stalwart humans save on 5s as well. So yeah, we'll see what they get in just a second. 2 points of damage to the Brutal army, and 3 saves, so 2 points of damage to the Stalwart force as well. Okay, and then I sort of, my big fat fingers failing to manipulate the dice properly there. But bear in mind, this only activates the Stalwart humans, not the Brutal side, because it was them who opted to do the shooting action. If the Stalwart side archers had decided to shoot at someone who didn't have shooting weapons back, then yeah, of course they'd have wouldn't be any return fire. But as it is, it's simultaneous, and both sides took 2 points of damage for their troubles. Could have been a lot worse. This game can get very bloody indeed. Okay, right, so it'll be up to the Brutal side now. Right, well, for the Brutal Army's activation, then, instead of just nominating a unit and doing its thing like the Stalwarts did, the Brutal Army is going to play a card from its hand, a special order, so this counts as their activation. Reckless Assault. One unit may perform a move or charge action with +1 to their movement. And then, focus. If used as a charge action, the attacker must reroll all failures on the melee attack, but they also have to reroll successful armor saves because they're reckless. Right, so this unit here, they're going to go with, and because the leader's with them, he's going to go with them. So it's slightly foolhardy, but they are reckless and brutal, so they're going for it. So these warriors would normally move 3 spaces, but they can move 4, and they're going to charge. They're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Take the commander with them. And like I said, because it's grid movement, you don't really have to be like exact. As long as they're in the same right space, that's what's matter. And they're going to twonk the living daylights out of these warriors here between them. Okay, so can do the attacks in any order I want, really, as long as, well, the attackers will go first because they're charging. Just going to mark them as activated. So 10 attacks, because that's their strength. We'll go with the warriors first. Okay, here we go. And now brutal warriors hit on 3s. So, right, okay. Here we go. So that's 3 misses. They'll soak that up. And, right, so Stalwart warriors, they save on 5s. So here we go. 2 saves, they took 5. Ouchie, ouchie. I'll mark that in a moment. They've taken 5 though. Now the Brutal Commander goes next, and he has 5 attacks. He hits on 3s. 2 failed. You know what? They'll take it. he's tempting to use the Fortune of War card, but it's not that bad a roll. So 3 hits, and then so 3 more saves of 5 or 6 for the Warriors. Here we go. Oh, 2 of them saved. So that's 6 hits altogether on these guys. Yoink. Ouch. Now they fight back, and they've only got 4 points of damage left, and because this is a unit of troops, they basically, their number of attacks is tied to their hit points. Note that that is not shared as a trait between troops and characters, for example, who keep fighting at full effectiveness until they're dead. But there we go. So these hit, I believe, on 4s. Yeah, they hit on 4s for Stalwart Warriors, not 3s. 3 hits, nice. These are obviously on the Warriors. You can't pick out characters unless you have a particular special rule or something. Now, Brutal Warriors have an armor save of 5 or 6, so 1 saved, 2 failed. So right, these guys go down to 8 hits remaining. Not bad. And yes, because the Stalwart Warriors there took more than half of their actual hits. Oh yeah, in the first round of attacks. Remember, they took 5 out of 10 from the the Bloodsworn Warriors there. They have to take a morale counter. So come the end of the turn, these guys, if they're still there, will have to take a morale test, and if they fail it, they will run away. Okay, nice and simple. Okay, on there just to remember it, so to remind us. Okay. And that concludes this unit's activation. And right, it'll go back to the Stalwart army. Let's see what happens. And the eagle-eyed and eared amongst you may have noticed that I did not actually do everything from Reckless Assault. I forgot to do the rerolls on the failures to hit and to successful armor save, so that just shows how important it is to pay attention to what the heck you're doing when you're filming video game things. But yeah, so overall though, the rerolls etc probably balance each other out over the course, but just to let you know, I should have rerolled misses with the Bloodsworn and their boss here, and but they should also have rerolled their successful armor save, so they'd have taken a bit more damage, but they'd probably have dealt a little bit more too. Whoopsie. Okay, carry on. Just did the next a couple of activations because not much happened. What we did, these knights here, well, the human militia cavalry. Let's just get a better look at those guys when the light hopefully hits them a bit better. There you go, not too bad so far. They've moved forwards up the flank here to start get around the sides of the Brutal army. Meanwhile, the Brutal army has actually started moving its Hellguard straight forwards as well. So a bit of a scary thought there coming towards them. We're back to the human side now, and what they're going to do is play a special order as their activation. They're going to activate this other unit of archers, and they're going to do a desperate volley. One infantry or cavalry unit, well, their infantry may perform a ranged action and then immediately perform another ranged action against the same target. It's -1 to hit, but they get a lot more shots. So they'll do 2 rounds of shooting against these guys. Obviously, they're screaming, "Bring him down," or something like that, as the heavily armoured hell demon things come towards them. So right, here we go, their first set of 10 shots, normally hitting on 4s, up to 5s now because of the desperate volley. So here we go. Well, that could have been better. 2 hits. The Hellguard here have a save of 4+, heavy infantry and all, brutal heavy infantry at that. Take 1, save 1. Oh well. So that puts them down to 9. Well, it is a desperate volley, not necessarily an effective one, but they do get another go. So let's see if we can do better this time. Right, 5s to hit. Oh, well, that is better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits. That's much better. So 5 saves with the Hellguard this time. 4s again. Ooh, and that is 3 fails. The Hellguard are going to chuck in the Fortune of War card because they think they can do better. They want to keep their heavy infantry in good shape. So let's see if they can do better now. That is 2 get through and 2 don't. So they take 2 more hits. 2 get through, 3 don't. Sorry, geez. Counting is so difficult apparently. So they took 7 altogether. Not enough at all to get them on a morale, but it's whittling them down. So there you go. That's that. So we're going to carry on. It's back to this side for their activations. The Bloodsworn crossbowmen, archers as they are going to open fire as a shooting action. Now they were hoping to get in on the knights before the knights had a chance to scoot, but unfortunately the knights have gone outside of their arc of fire with their speedy move forward. So they'll just have to console themselves by engaging. They'll engage these archers again in a duel across the way, which means these guys do get to shoot back despite having activated. They're being targeted by these guys. So there you go. 8 shots now, as you can see. So here we go. Force to hit. Oh, that's quite a healthy lot. That's 5, and 5 or more to save because we found that out before. So blue dice. 2 saved, 3 get through. So that will put them down from 8 to 5. But they will fire back with the full 8. So let's do that. Using these lovely blue dice. 4s. Ooh, that's a scary dairy. 6. So let's have a go. Oh, that was that one, I'm afraid. Oh, that's all of them. Yikes. So that's them. Yeah. Down to 2, and that is a bit of a pasting in their own activation as well, no less. And so it's a morale, and they've activated. So that's that for them. Ooh, that was not a successful round of shooting. Oh well, never mind. They're only Bloodsworn, that's what they're for. For brevity's sake, I played out the remainder of the turn. The knights over here, the lancers with their general, smashed into the warriors down here, and were fought back as well in turn by the Bloodsworn in their own activation. So the lancers attacked them, charged in, did some damage. As you can see, quite a lot of damage. There's only 3 hit points left on these guys. However, the Bloodsworn hit back as well after that, and then initiated their own round of combat. So 2 rounds of combat, don't forget. Overall during the course of the turn, and hit the lancers back to the point they've only got 1 hit point remaining. Cavalry in this are brittle. They hit hard, but they're brittle. You really want to get them round the sides, but they hit hard, so if they can do the damage, so if you stack them properly, you give them decent upgrades, they can break the lines of infantry. But unupgraded such as this, they will do damage, but they won't really be up for doing an awful lot more after that. But they're a good character delivery system nonetheless. Okay, so yeah, overall, because both sides are so battered, they're both taking morale tests. Let's see. Oh yes, the Hellguard moved up, were charged by the infantry and got the better of it overall. The Hellguard did overall, including lots of damage there. And that pretty much concludes the activations for this turn. So I'll be back with you in the aftermath phase. Okay, we're moving to the aftermath phase now, and there's several things you need to do. First of all, one of the things I'll be doing is picking up all these activation markers so I can use them again next turn. But also, you take morale rolls. So every unit that has a morale marker on it has to now dice. So doesn't really matter what order you do this bit in at all. Both sides can do it simultaneously, but me being on my own, we'll just do it this way. These guys have a morale value of 5, which means they need to roll a 5 or 6 and a die. And they do not. So what happens is that morale turns into a runaway marker, which when I paint them up properly, that will say retreat on the back. Haha. We'll move along to the Bloodsworn over here. They have a 5 or 6 as well. Not particularly brave. Oh dear, this is not going well. So okay, that's it for the brutal army. However, the stalwart force still has some to take. So right, we'll start here. Lancers have on a stalwart side have a morale of 4+. They can use the commander. However, he's also 4+. But that said, Lancers have the devoted special rule, which means if they roll a 1 on their morale roll, they will they'll re-roll it. So there you go. So their morale is a 4+. They've got a 2. Brilliant. Okay, they are also going to be retreating. They have battered themselves enough. And finally, these guys over here, who are hardly charged by the nasty Bloodsworn and the general, have a 4 up. No, they've got a 5 up morale. However, Stalwart Forces special rule is that if they're adjacent to friends, i.e. even this diagonal here, they get +1 on their morale. So they want a 4+ as well. Can someone pass? They do. So if you pass your morale, what you do is you just simply take off the morale marker, which is what I'm moving around to do now. So, okay. Now, starting with the player who activated last, which is the... I do believe it's the one who activated last, which is the... what's it called? The... Stalwart player. They have to choose one of their units to run away, but to be honest, everyone's just running away who's in contact, so there's really not much to it. So these guys, they move away D3 +1 because they are cavalry. So what happens is they run away from the nearest enemy, which is them, and they're going 3. That's a 2 on a D3. They're going back 3 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, and turn around and take your general with you. So they're going to be effectively running away. Okay, there we are, and that's them done. The Bloodsworn Warband over here, let's get back to them. The ones they were in contact with are also running away, having taken so much damage they're just feeling they need to retreat from the board. So they go back D3, which is the standard move. 3 spaces, which is clearly off the board edge, they are gone. So just like in the old Warhammer, don't stay too close to your own board edge or you'll run away straight off it, possibly. And finally these guys, will they suffer the same fate? They will not, go back 1, so... But yes, okay, in future turns they can be activated, but they need to pass a morale check, otherwise they will just keep this token and keep running away. If they pass a morale check, they'll be able to turn back round. Right, the only other thing to do really in this phase is to discard any command cards you don't want. Now both sides played out most of their hands, but they've got a couple they didn't actually tend to use. You can either choose to keep them or lose them. That's how it works, okay? And then they'll draw back up at the beginning of their next turn, okay? There was no pursuit moves because no one was left next to an enemy that had just run away. Everyone decided to run away or not, okay? So that's how the game overall works though. I hope this sort of gives you a better idea. Of course there's a lot more to it. I just showed you the very basic sponge pudding side of it. There's no icing on this cake just yet, and boy, you can put as much icing on as you want. You can add some jam. I'm going to end this metaphor because it's stupid, but no, you can increase the rules, the complexity. I've played some big games of this and it really does work quite well with some really cool traits added to the various units, and yeah, it's a good fun time. Okay, right, hope this made sense to you, and I'll see you next time.